Okay, so let's start creating the EC2 instance. This is the configuration that we have done till now. We have created one virtual private cloud, that is one VPC. We have two availability zones. This availability zone which has one public subnet and a private subnet, and we have one availability zone in which we have only one private subnet. So in the availability zone in which we have two subnets, one is public and one is private, we have to create the EC2 instance. So we have to create four EC2 instances. One EC2 instance in the public segment that is used to connect all the servers, and one AD server that will be our domain controller, and two SQL instances. One SQL instances in one private subnet, another SQL instance in another availability zone in the private subnet. On these two SQL instances, we will configure the always on configuration. So if we go on to the EC2 dashboard and click on the instances, now we don't have any instances as of now created on this in this region. So let's launch one EC2 instance, and first EC2 instance is our jump box, and this will be Windows. Let's use Windows 2019 base for our jump box server. We can use T3 micro free trial eligible, and let's create one key for our jump box. Let's give the name as AWS AON. Create key. Once I hit on create key, the jump key will be downloaded, and let's edit the VPC. VPC is AWS AON, and the subnet is public subnet, and auto assign public IP we have to enable because we have to connect to this jump box from our desktop. Hit on create security group. Let's give one name of the security group. We will use only one security group for all these two instances. For the jump box, for the domain controller, for SQL instance 1 and 2, we will use the same security group, AWS AON. That is the name of the security group that I have given, AWS AON -SG. Let's copy and paste it in the description, and the rule of the security group will be RDP from my public IP. So this is my public IP. Storage of this jump box is 30 GB. Rest everything will be default. We don't have to change anything. And let's hit on launch instances. Once we hit on the launch instances, successfully initiated the launch of the instances. So if we go on to the instance section, we can see our jump box is creating actually. Once this is initialized, then we can use or RDP to this jump box. Now let's go to again and let's start creating our domain server. Once we start on domain server, the name of the server is domain server. This is also Windows. Let's use Windows 2019 base, and instance type we can use T3 medium. Since it's a domain controller, so it will need some CPU and memory to configure the domain controller, and use same AWS AON key pair for login on this domain controller. Into the networking settings, we will go on to the edit button and use the same VPC AWS AON. The subnet will be AWS AON private subnet 1. Auto assign public IP will be disabled because we don't have to access this domain server from the internet. We will access this domain controller from the jump box. So from my desktop I will log in on the jump box, then I will log in onto the domain controller. I will show you this. Select the existing security group. We have one security group created. We will use the same security group. And in the advanced network configuration, we don't have anything. These all part will be default, and let's hit on launch instance. Once we hit on launch instance, this instance is also created. Now let's go on to the and launch two more instances. One is SQL Server 1P, and this is Windows. And now we have to use Windows Server with SQL Server Standard installed on it, or SQL Server Enterprise installed on it. So let's use Microsoft Windows Server 2019 with SQL Server 2019 Enterprise Edition. Let's use this for both the SQL Server instances, SQL Server 1P and 1S. And the minimum configuration required for configuring a SQL Server is 4 CPU and 16 GB RAM. This is the minimum configuration on which you can launch a SQL instances in AWS. So T3X large. Let's use the same key pair. This will also be in the private subnet. Let's hit on edit and see private subnet 1A, and use the same security group, AWS OAN, and 65 GB RAM. The rest everything will be default. Launch this instance. Again go on to the instance, launch instance, and then SQL Server 1S, and same process what we did in the last step. Windows 2019 with SQL Server 2019 Enterprise Edition, and instance type will be T3X, T3 large, 4 and 16 CPU. Key pair will be AWS AON. Network security will be. Now we have to launch this SQL Server in another VPC in the private subnet too. So this is our next availability zone that we have. Sorry, in the another availability zone that we have in the same VPC in the another availability zone. So we have two availability zone, 1A and 1B. So we will launch this SQL Server in the availability zone EU North 1B, and this is the subnet. Disable the auto assign public IP. Select the existing security group that we are using for all the servers. Rest everything will be default, and hit on launch instances. So this instance is also launched. So we have launched our all the four instances. One is Jumpbox, one is domain controller, one is SQL Server 1P and SQL Server 1S. So if we go on to the subnet, you can see, let's wait for some time and these all things will be updated. See, the security group of all the servers are same. 3 servers are in 1A and 1 server is in 1B. So this is our jump host, this is our domain controller, SQL Server 1P and SQL Server 1S. I would also like to show you the subnets of these servers. So let me see if we can get subnet over here. Subnet ID. Confirm. So if we go over here and check the subnet ID, see